The AAC Report is brought to you by Blake Blahut of Realty One Group. Whether you're looking to buy your very first home or looking to downsize or upgrade, call Blake Blahut anytime at 407-748-0484. Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thank you so much for listening. Coming up on this week's show, it's championship time in basketball. We will hear from Commissioner Mike Oresco and all 12 coaches as we head into the men's basketball tournament. And our Knightline basketball analyst Ben Stout joins me to break down the conference tourney, plus a recap of the women's conference tournament and more news and notes from around the AAC. The men's regular season in basketball ends up with 3 teams with a share of the title. Houston, Cincinnati, and Tulsa all wind up the regular campaign at 13-5. Cincinnati had to rally for a 1-point win over Temple over the weekend, and Houston took care of Memphis on a nationally televised Sunday game on CBS, which left it all in the hands of Tulsa, with a chance to win the regular season title outright, needing a win over Wichita State, but it was not to be as the Golden Hurricane got thumped by the Shockers. So now it's on to the conference tourney at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, starting Thursday. Commissioner Mike Oresco kicked off the coaches' tournament teleconference, and he talks about another fine season for the league.
First of all, we're obviously delighted to be going to Fort Worth. It's an incomparable arena at Dickies, and the people there have been terrific. I will talk briefly about the coronavirus situation. Obviously, I'm sure that's on everyone's mind. But in terms of the tournament itself and the league itself, we have had another excellent regular season. We are a dynamic conference. We're part of the Major 7 of college basketball with great pedigree in our programs. And we have been a multi-bid conference now since we've been created. And on several occasions we've had four bids. This year I think we've been, and I think this has been true in the past too, we've been an underrated league. And the CBS commentators talked a little about that yesterday in the Houston Memphis game. I think the league is underrated. I think we've got a lot of talented teams that play hard. We've got a lot of young players. You know, when you watch the SMU Houston overtime game, you realize that combined, there's only one senior on those rosters. And that shows you that we're a young team. This is a transitional year for us. We had more veteran teams last year with Houston and UCF and Cincinnati. Wichita State has come back into the mix, as you know, after having essentially a rebuilding year last year. We're obviously hoping that this year our goal is obviously to get 3 bids and possibly 4.
And about the coronavirus.
In terms of the coronavirus situation, again, right now everything is a go in Fort Worth. We have open lines of communication with the appropriate local and state, public health officials at not only Fort Worth, but the sites of our other conference championships. It's going to be, as you know, a busy conference championship season. We're going to work closely with them to monitor the situation, and we'll determine what we need to do as the situation requires. We've also been in touch with the NCAA on these issues, and we've reached out to our member institutions as well, and we've discussed with them what action plans they may have. We're also taking reasonable health-related precautions at our championships, providing additional alcohol-based hand sanitizer stations in team and fan areas, for example. There are cleaning protocols at various sites. We're not medical people, we're not doctors, but we are taking our advice from the CDC and from, obviously, local health authorities. We're placing CDC, Center for Disease Control, information regarding coronavirus in the team and fan areas, our championship arenas and sites, and providing them information in team informational packets.
And now time to talk about action on the court after the 3-way tie atop the conference and tiebreakers applied. Cincinnati will be the top seed, Houston number 2, and Tulsa the 3rd seed. Wichita State's win yesterday allows them to hold the 4th spot, so each of those teams will get a first-round bye. And that first-round action kicks off on Thursday with another installment of the War on I-4 as the 9 seed South Florida takes on the number 8 seed UCF, 1 o'clock on ESPNU. Bulls head coach Brian Gregory.
Feel good heading into the tournament. I think probably over the last 4 weeks, maybe even longer, we played our best basketball of the season, have won some really impressive games, and have had some tough losses, but very competitive in all those losses. I think every game that we've played in our last 9 or 10 games have gone to the last 8 minutes, where the game was still in the balance, 1 or 2 possession game going either way. It's our guys are figuring out some things, and I think defensively and rebounding wise, we've been pretty steady. And when our offense clicks, we're just a much different team. And by clicking, I mean not only making shots, but also our primary thing is taking care of the basketball and getting shots up on the rim. But it's been led by a greater consistency by LaQuincy and David Collins, and 2 guys that have really stepped up their play for us, in Mike Durer and Justin Brown, have both had tremendous second halves of the season. So feel good about how our guys have responded to some of the adversity and challenges that you face during a long year. Probably playing our best basketball of the season right now. Obviously, great respect for Coach Dawkins and their program, and it's a great opportunity for us to, start off the entire league tournament with a rivalry game in the program. So we split during the year. I think both teams had stretches in both games that they played extremely well and exactly the way the coaches wanted them to do, and it's going to be another game that you're going to have to play well for 40 minutes in order to be successful in.
And Knights head coach Donnie Dawkins adds his thoughts.
It's kind of a new season for us. So our guys are looking forward to a kind of a new beginning. Of course, USF is a very good basketball team. They played very well. They've been playing very well down the stretch of the season. And we understand that. From the one, our force has always been competitive. And that's what we expect again.
The second game of the day on Thursday, we'll have the 12-seed Tulane taking on arguably the hottest team coming into the tournament, the 5-seed UConn. That'll be at 3 o'clock on ESPNU. Here's Tulane Green Wave head coach Ron Hunter.
We had a really great game with them yesterday, and UConn's playing great basketball right now and scoring the ball. And so we look forward to going down there and giving an opportunity. Our last 4 or 5 games have almost come down to last possession games. And so as we're trying to learn and grow the program, our kids got to, figure out how to win those games now. But they'll compete. Our kids will compete and they'll play hard, and we'll battle like we've done really all year. And hopefully our fortunes will turn on Thursday.
UConn head coach Danny Hurley talks about his hot team coming into the tournament.
Obviously, happy with the effort of the group. With just kind of the combination of some really close, tough losses against some very good teams, both in the non-conference and in conference play, and with the 2 devastating injuries to Tyler and a Cook, but to watch the way that the teams battle and continue to grow and develop in year 2 of the program. It was an incredibly rewarding regular season for us, and obviously we're excited for the opportunity to compete for a championship this week in Dallas, Texas.
Game 3 starts off the evening session as the 10-seed Temple takes on the number 7-seed SMU Mustangs. That'll be at 8 o'clock on ESPNU. Owls head coach Aaron McKee.
Yeah, we had a tough one to close out the regular season, the conference season against Cincinnati, where we lost at the end. Came down, we made a big play, and those guys got an offensive rebound and put back. So kind of rocked us a little bit. We wanted to have some momentum going into our conference championships. And so, with SMU, they pose a great problem. They're really good offensively. A lot of times they can be out on the floor playing with, 5 guards. They want to space you and shoot the 3 ball. And they have a really good point guard that makes it all work in Davis. So we're going to have our hands full. We got to try to make sure we keep him out of the paint. We got to make sure we try to do our best at guarding that three-point line against those guys.
And SMU head coach Tim Jankovic talks about his team not playing so well coming in. Hopefully they can rebound.
Well, like every team, we're excited to go postseason, third season of the year, and we're feeling great. 1 week ago, a week and a day ago, we were feeling great, still had a chance, an outside chance at sharing, we thought, maybe the conference title. It was still in the balance, and then we, had a awful week. We had 3 games, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, and unfortunately had our toughest week of the year right there and lost 3 very close games and put ourselves in the position we're in to play Thursday night. So, like a lot of teams, including Temple, the team we play, the razor-thin margin of error, there's so many teams in our league that could say, gosh, give us 3 or 4 possessions, and this thing looks totally different. And, we certainly feel that way. I know Temple feels that way. So many real close losses that if they go the other way, you're looking at a complete different season. But we are excited, and it's going to be fun to go to Fort Worth right across town. So that's a real positive for us.
And the final game of day 1, it'll be number 11 ECU at number 6 Memphis. That will be at 10 o'clock on ESPNU. Here's Pirates head coach Jim Dooley.
Well, obviously, we were down at Memphis about 2 weeks ago, and I think it was hard to stimulate their athleticism early in the game. They really got out to a good lead, and we did a nice job cutting it to, we tied it 3 times in the last couple minutes of the game, and Boogie Ellis made a big shot. So I do think our guys have a little familiarity. Obviously very talented. Penny's done a real good job keeping those guys together, and we'll try to regroup and head down there.
And here's Memphis head coach Penny Hardaway's thoughts on the game.
Yeah, we are, we've grown so much being the youngest team in the NCAA, obviously the youngest team in our league. We played ECU at our home earlier and had a good lead and then kind of relinquished that. At the end, they started making shots, and, it was a good game. So going into the tournament, we don't take anybody lightly, even though they haven't had the season that they want. They still compete, and we're looking forward to the tournament.
As for the top 4 seeds, they will get into action with the quarterfinals on Friday. The UCF winner will take on the top seed Cincinnati. That'll be at 1 o'clock on ESPN2. Here's Bearcats head coach John Brannon.
Very excited, very honored to win the regular season title and be co-champions with Tulsa and Houston. Tremendous, accomplishment for our young men and for our program. So I think, the truest form of a championship is oftentimes your regular season title because it's a gauntlet of 18 games. And so really proud of our young men. Specific to the tournament, I feel like coming in, I don't necessarily think we're playing our best basketball, but at the same time, we're finding ways to win, and we're getting healthy as the days go by, which I think has been a challenge for this team for most of the year. Specific to our potential matchups, only played USF 1 time, which was the last regular season road game for us, and it was a really close game. Obviously, they'd gotten up pretty big in the second half, and I thought played really well, and it was a really challenging game. We didn't have Jaron for that game. And then UCF, we split both on the road. Both road teams won. They came in our building late in the season and played really, really well. And I thought defensively really took us to some places that we didn't like and didn't do a very good job of executing.
And the second game on Friday will have the 4-seed Wichita State. They will be taking on the winner of the Tulane UConn game. Here's Shockers head coach Greg Marshall.
Well, both of them we had great games with. We only played them once each, so it would be the second time we would see either one of them. I guess Tulane came here, and we got a big lead at halftime, and then they actually won the second half. And then the UConn game, we were up most of the game, up about 9 with a minute to go, and they came back, forced overtime, and I think it went to a double overtime before winning early in the season. So good games with both of them. obviously, this time of year, everyone's trying to get to the big dance. So desperation mode for all three of us, and whoever we play, we anticipate a very good game and a hard-fought game.
And that will be a 3 o'clock tip-off on ESPN2. The evening session gets started at 7:30 on ESPNU as the Houston Cougars will battle the winner of the Temple SMU game. Here's Cougs head coach Kelvin Sampson.
Our team is, I think that game yesterday was a little bit of an outlier for both teams, because I think the daylight saving time, was really a 10 o'clock a.m. start. I don't know if our guys have ever had to get up and play a game of that magnitude with everything at stake, senior night, national TV, tremendous opponent, Memphis, and having to get going right away. But I was impressed with Memphis. I know Penny did a great job of having his team ready to play. I thought they were certainly the aggressor early in the game, and then all the missed shots we had, I think, was affecting some other things, but we got that figured out. Came out after halftime, did a much better job, I think, in every area. I think our player leadership kind of took over and got us going. But, we've all played 30, 31 games, and kids get rejuvenated. I think there's an energy about going to a neutral site where all the conference teams are together, knowing that what's at stake, and knowing it's a survival situation. So I'm sure everybody's excited about moving on to the third season. You have non-conference season, conference season, and now you have post-season. And that creates excitement in itself. And I know our kids will be excited to go to Fort Worth and try to win a game. And
quarterfinal action will wrap up with the number 3 seed Tulsa taking on the winner of ECU and Memphis. Here's Golden Hurricane head coach Frank Haith.
Obviously, I thought we were playing really well. Up until yesterday, we played a really good Wichita State team that played extremely well in their building, and but our guys, I thought we were in a good place, both ends of the court, executing. Yesterday we didn't play great, but Wichita State had a lot to do with that in terms of what they did to us and their physicality and just how hard and how well they played. But we're looking forward to getting to Fort Worth and competing and for an opportunity to play in postseason.
And that'll be a 9:30 tip on ESPNU. The semifinals on Saturday will take place at 3 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2 and 5 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. The final taking place on Sunday, 2:15 on ESPN. Up next, our Knightline basketball analyst Ben Stout joins me to break down the tournament when the AAC report continues in just a moment. Are you tired of the endless money pit of paying rent? Do you have a home you need to sell for top dollar? Talk to the Hometown Advantage award-winning real estate professional and fellow UCF Knight, Blake Blahut of Realty One Group. Blake has proven to produce results and a smooth process for his clients all across Central Florida. Whether you're looking to buy your very first home or looking to downsize or upgrade, talk to Blake Blahut. Visit him at his website, Blake'sOrlandoHomes.com, or contact him anytime at 407-748-0484. Again, Blake'sOrlandoHomes.com and 407-748-0484. Get the hometown advantage by working with Blake.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fagley reminding you to tune in every Sunday morning at our new time, 10 to 11 a.m. on ESPN 580 Orlando for Knightline the Morning After. Brought to you by Chad Barlaw. We'll be taking your calls and your texts reacting to the previous week's UCF sports action, and you never know who will show up. Once again, that's Knightline the Morning After, every Sunday morning, 10 to 11 a.m. on ESPN 580 Orlando or TuneIn Radio. Go Knights and charge on.
Oh yeah, March Madness is upon us as the American Athletic Conference gets set for its conference tournament. Joining me now to break it all down is our Knightline Sports Network basketball analyst, Ben Stout. Ben, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. It is definitely that time of year where we're all super excited to see some postseason basketball, and our Knights haven't had the best season this year, but hopefully we can create some surprises in the conference tournament here, and who knows what happens with this crazy conference this year, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, is it not fitting that there was a three-way tie for the regular season title this year?
Yeah, I mean, it could have easily been a 4 or 5-way tie, the way that this was shaken out. But yeah, it's absolutely fitting that there was a 3-way tie and they had to go to the second, third tiebreaker, to have Cincinnati be the number 1 seed in the tournament. But you're absolutely right. It's very fitting that it was kind of hard to figure out when you were trying to figure out the seeding or the seeding scenarios going into this weekend. It was almost like you give up the research because you're like, I don't know, let's just see what happens by Sunday night.
Yeah, and just as like every twist and turn it's been all season, teams win when you think they lose when you think they're going to win, they win when you think they're going to lose. It's been just crazy up and down all year. So let's kind of go through it a little bit. So, we do have the top 4 seeds will get a bye. That being Cincinnati, Houston, Tulsa, and Wichita State, which they had a big win over Tulsa to hold that 4 spot. So it'll all kick off on Thursday at 1:00 Eastern time. And boy, wouldn't you know it, the war on I-4 will actually get this thing started. And these teams split during the regular season, and a pretty even matchup as an 8-9 seed would be.
Yeah, I mean, just as crazy as we've talked about this season being, going into Saturday night, it was probably the most unlikely scenario that we would be facing the Cows, with USF and UCF matching up, just because there was a 3-way tie at that kind of 8, 9, and 10 spot, and it took some last-second shots in both the USF game against SMU and a last-second shot in the Cincinnati game versus Temple to kind of make it so where UCF won on Sunday, and all of a sudden it's an 8-9 matchup. War on I-4 moves over to Dallas. So that's going to be one heck of a matchup with two teams that are obviously familiar with each other and don't like each other very well. And so that's that rivalry game. We're getting that matchup right away, starting out at 1 p.m. on Thursday.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if UCF can carry that dominant performance they had against East Carolina on Sunday into that. But they've been a little Jekyll and Hyde all year, and South Florida certainly is a team that has been somewhat handicapped without their best player, Yenta, all season. But definitely a game that will definitely gets the tournament off to a hot start for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they do have their senior leader in LaQuincy Riddell. It seems like, as a UCF fan, it seems like that guy's been in USF for about 10 years now. But I'm not going to be too upset when he graduates and rides off into the sunset. But he's certainly a good player for them, and he's going to have them poised and ready to go. We match up pretty similar with USF. We're obviously we've got some leadership or some seniors, but a lot of youth and a lot of kind of interesting things that have happened to them this year with some injuries, and so it should be an interesting matchup and hopefully one that we can come out on top as a Knights fan. But we're certainly going to need to, like we did in the ECU game on Sunday, we're going to certainly need to be able to move the ball well on offense. I think that was one of the reasons why we had hardly any success in Tampa this year when we played them a few weeks ago. I think we kind of got within ourselves, started playing one-on-one ball too much, and with the defensive scheme that USF employs, that's a recipe for disaster, and it kind of all fell apart. So if we can play poised and play together on offense, and then certainly attack on the defensive end, hopefully we can put them in a bad position and be able to move on past that first round matchup. And always winning against the Cows is a good thing for us Knight fans.
There you go. So you're allowed to do that on the AAC report, to wear your UCF colored glasses. And a little the neutrality kind of goes out the window a little bit there, and we understand that. So the second game,
I'm going to throw it out the window talking about the 8-9 matchup, but I'll try to be more objective moving on.
No worries. So the second game has the 12 seed Tulane against the 5 seed UConn. The Huskies, arguably the hottest team in the conference right now, and deja vu all over again. They just played yesterday.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a rematch right there, right away for UConn and Tulane, and I think that I don't have the score of the game in front of me that happened yesterday. I mean, I just think UConn is a more talent. They're further along than Tulane is. They're a much more talented team, and Tulane's been really struggled when they've been on the road or in on neutral court this year. They kind of started out hot at home this season, but they're just not quite there yet. They've surprised a few teams this year, but I just don't see it happening against UConn, and I see UConn kind of taking it over. And this kind of result, if UCF can't kind of shock the world and go through this bracket, I'm kind of like on the sense of anybody but UConn with them leaving the conference this year. So I'm hoping somebody gets it done, but I don't think it's going to be Tulane on Thursday.
Yeah, it was an 80-76 game on Tulane's home floor. It was a pretty tight game throughout the contest yesterday as well. And you look at UConn and you look at the talent they have. The youngster in Book Knight, who's been playing great, and Vital. They are just a team that certainly will, like I've always said, Hurley will make that team a good team before it's all said and done.
Certainly,
and they will definitely become relevant in the Big East at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure Christian Vital is a senior this year, and this will be his last go at it. And so he's going to want to. He's certainly going to put that maximum effort to make sure that UConn goes as far as they can this season. And he's one of those guys. I think he's either top 10 or maybe all time in 3-pointers made in the American Conference. And so he's one that you got to look out for. And you're right about Book Knight. I mean, he's a young guy that is super talented. So. Yeah, I definitely see them getting past Tulane, and it'll probably be a little bit different than the kind of closer game than it was yesterday.
Yeah, then you look at the 10-seed Temple against the 7-seed SMU. The Mustangs have had a really bad week. They've lost 3 in a row. And Temple, they're a team that, although their record doesn't indicate it, they've played teams tough as we've seen throughout the course of the season.
Yes, I think that this is two teams, although, Temple kind of lost a heartbreaker when they were up at Cincinnati on Saturday night this past weekend. I just see these two teams and going in kind of two different directions. The kind of host team for this tournament, it being in Dallas, I think that Temple is going to be able to kind of hold out. I don't even know what the lines of any of these games are, but I really think that Temple's probably poised to go ahead and take that game, because you're right, they've got a ton of talent on their team, and they're kind of a gritty team that really wants to take it at them, and they've also got and could be mistaken. I believe Isaiah Grimes is a senior as well, and so he's going to try to make sure that they can move on in this tournament. And SMU is probably the only team in the conference, I believe, without a single senior on their roster. And so I think that experience kind of wins out a little bit here in the Temple. Temple taking it on, and probably one of the best games of the first round with Temple going up against SMU, the host team in the tournament.
Yeah, and then the first round will conclude with ECU as the 11th seed against the 6th seed Memphis. We certainly would not have picked Memphis as a 6th seed at the beginning of the season, but their tide certainly changed when they lost their arguably the best player in college basketball.
Yeah.
And here they are as a sixth seed, but I still say they can be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, James Wiseman was the number one reason why Memphis and Penny Hardaway had the number one recruiting class in the country, but with guys like Precious Achiuwa and the other talented young guys that they have on their team, there's certainly a ton of other guys on that squad that are extremely talented, and they've got the size. They've got a few guys that can really shoot the basketball. And then of course you got that force in the middle that going to the game that UCF played ECU this past Sunday, you just didn't really see any of that size on the court, even with a guy as kind of strong and talented as Jalen Gardner is. They just don't have anybody that can match up with Precious Achiuwa. So, that's one that probably bodes well for Memphis to go ahead and move on in that tournament. They're young. Who knows what could happen, but ECU is really young as well. And while leading up to the UCF matchup, they had shown some really good things. I just don't think that they're quite there yet to match up with a team with the talent level as Memphis.
Yeah. And then we move into Friday. The top four seeds will be in action. So Cincinnati is the 1 seed. We get the South Florida UCF winner. UCF, of course, scored their biggest win of the season at Cincinnati. So they can, if the Knights were to move on, they would have that knowledge that, okay, we know how to beat these guys.
Yeah, you definitely, it's kind of a catch-22 if UCF is able to get past USF and move on and play Cincinnati. It's kind of a catch-22 where they have the confidence that they have been able to beat them, and they were ahead for most of the game. Cincinnati kind of they did what they do and made sure it was a close game at the end, and sure enough, in double overtime we were able to pull it out. But obviously the other side of that coin is Cincinnati is not happy with us, and they are certainly out for revenge if they match up with UCF in that first round game. And they've obviously got some size in the middle, and then they've got that senior leadership of Duron Cumberland, who could go back to back as the conference player of the year, and certainly is a great overall player. And then his cousin is also a great shooter that comes off the bench. So they're going to be a tough out no matter what. And I was talking about it with the guys yesterday about UCF potentially matching up with Cincinnati in that second round matchup. It's just of course it's Cincinnati. It just seems like they have really been kind of a rival for UCF in all sports. We saw it yesterday when they unfortunately took down our women's team, and the multiple matchups that we've had with them in football and basketball over the last number of years. And so that'll certainly be a game that everyone's going to have to kind of man up, and they know it's going to be a physical game, and we'll have to see how we match up against them.
Yeah, and if it's South Florida that advances, it's still, a team that Cincinnati would certainly be favored over. Although one thing we can say about Cincinnati, if they're playing, it's probably going to be a close game, if not overtime.
Yeah, really. What do they have, like 5 straight or 4 straight overtime games this year, including the double overtime game that we had against us? So
yeah, like 7 overall, I think, too. So yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, they play them close, that's for sure. So that's definitely a trait that probably helps them in some respects, I would think, as well. I think that's got to be close to a record, right? For NCAA basketball, 7 overtime games in a single season. That's insane. Yeah, I have to look that up. So then the Wichita State is the 4 seed. We get the winner of Tulane and UConn. We're pretty much thinking it will be UConn, and that could UConn might be that team that nobody wants to play at this point of the season.
Yeah, the last time that UConn did win the conference championship, I believe it was they were a 5 seed as well. And so, they are, in my opinion, they are, as you just said, Jeff, they are a dangerous team. I just think at the end of the day, with the talent and the coaching, and just the way they kind of play the game the right way, I think that Wichita State will be able to pull that out. But I think that's going to be one of the best games of the second round there. I mean, those are two teams that probably match up pretty well together, and it'll be one heck of a game to watch. I mean, I think with the crazy upsets are just the crazy games that have happened in this conference, I mean, every game is going to be a lot of fun to watch, but that's certainly going to be no different. Those are two dangerous teams that are going to be playing at a high level.
Yeah, and then, you look at Wichita State. Ikeniche is certainly a tremendous talent. Stevenson, he's kind of a hot and cold guy, but when he's hot, he's almost impossible to guard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you look at the wealth of talent that they have. Dennis has come on strong after having a tough start to the season. They were the team that I had on my. I was kind of on their bandwagon, so to speak, as one of the favorites to win the conference this year.
Yeah.
When they are on, they are definitely on. So Houston will get the winner of Temple and SMU, and the Cougars, of course, they stubbed their toe against UConn, but then they come back and Memphis gave them kind of punched them in the mouth early, and the Cougars, man, I tell you, if there's one thing that's a beauty to watch about them, it's rebounding, and not just rebounding, but offensive rebounding.
Yeah, they're those two teams that we just discussed. Wichita State and Houston. They're quite, they're impressive on the offensive glass, especially. But Houston is such an interesting team to me, just in general. Just the way that Calvin Sampson just kind of has made that, kind of built that program. They really play kind of positionless basketball in the sense that they don't have a ton of height, but they always seem to be such a good rebounding team in general. They're super athletic, and they have a lot of guys that can play multiple positions. And so I just think that that's the strength of their team. They're able to match up and kind of confuse teams. You kind of don't. The scouting report is really hard to nail down against Houston, and so I just, as crazy as this league has been, that's a matchup in the second round that I don't really see as much of an issue for Houston, and I think that they're going to be able to kind of take that game down, regardless if it's Temple or SMU, just because of the things that you mentioned. I mean, their ability to attack the glass from a rebounding standpoint, and just their overall, just the way they share the ball well, and kind of have players that are so talented that can play multiple positions. They're a team that is really poised to do some great things.
Yeah, and you look at, and someone thought this would be somewhat of a rebuild for Houston this season, but then they get two freshmen that come along, Marcus Sasser, Caleb Mills. You throw them in with the likes of Giroux. Quentin Grimes can be a hot shooter at times, and Nate Hitton, who they say is the heart and soul of the team. They really did. They did strike it well with getting those two freshmen to come along as quickly as they did.
Yeah, you mentioned Nate Hitton, of course, being the heart and soul. I mean, I think he's leading the league in rebounding. If not, he's right up there. And then you mentioned, Caleb Mills as a freshman, leading the team. They really balance out the scoring in Houston, but Caleb Mills is leading the team in scoring, and so certainly they got some great freshman talent, and man, Hinton, when he's attacking the glass, he's kind of a beast. Where from a guard standpoint, his ability to attack the glass and get those rebounds it's quite impressive, and he's super athletic. I was mistaken what I said earlier. He's not leading the league in rebounding, but he's a guard that's averaging 8.7 rebounds a game. That's a big deal from the 3-2 that he plays. So again, Houston with their kind of guys that can play multiple positions and the athleticism that they have, and they're a well-coached team. Sampson really has them running well, so they're going to be a tough out, that's for sure.
And then we conclude Friday night with the 3-seed Tulsa. They will play the winner of ECU and Memphis, most likely Memphis, of course, in what would be an interesting matchup. And Tulsa, certainly the surprise of the league this year. Many picked them. What was it? 10th was their ranking coming into the season in conference. And here they are sharing the regular season conference championship and being one of the top 4 seeds in the tournament.
Yeah, Tulsa, I mean, they are absolutely they're kind of the epitome of this conference, and you never know what you're going to get, but they certainly have been the big surprise of this season. They are a team that is kind of limping into the tournament a little bit. They got smoked by Wichita State, in the last game of the season there. I mean, granted, it was at Wichita State, who has a huge home court advantage, but they certainly, Wichita kind of dominated them from start to finish. And so they're looking to bounce back from that performance. And I do think that they're going to run into a little bit of they're going to run into a talented and big team, especially if they're going to have to face Memphis, and which it looks like they will. So that'll be another good matchup. I mean, Tulsa's got some athleticism on their side and some talent as well. I don't even know who to predict that's going to win that game, but it's certainly going to be a good one, I think. It could be back and forth, and it's kind of a jump ball game, that's for sure. Yeah,
you look at Tulsa; they also have a certain amount of toughness to them. Brandon Rashal is a terrific player. Elijah Joyner, Igbanu gives them some good minutes. Horn, Karita, these guys have just kind of and I think they kind of embraced that underdog role to quite a bit of an extent too.
Yeah, they do. And you mentioned Karita. I mean, that's a guy that really embraces the underdog role too. We obviously got the brunt end of that when we played against them on their senior night, this past or last week, I should say, from a UCF perspective. And that guy got hot, and he's been playing really good basketball lately. He's been lighting it up from the outside, and they're definitely a team that's got a lot of toughness. They have a lot of grit. They're not going to go down easy, that's for sure. I don't care who they're facing. So certainly they are capable, and they are have the determination to get past a team like Memphis. That's going to be a really interesting game and probably a lot of fun to watch as the late game on Friday to see what happens there.
Well, Ben, if you had to put all your chips in the middle of the table, and you got to put every single one of them in, which team do you think comes away as the conference tournament winner?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and as much as I like the way that Houston has played throughout the season, and as I said, kind of the talent and the way that they play this year, I just really think that from that number 4 seed at Wichita State, I think they're playing better and better over the last few weeks. They're really poised, and I think Wichita State with Ichinike and some of the just the great talent that they have on their team, I think that they're going to be able to kind of come out on top. I think that they got to get past UConn in that first game, and they're going to have some tough matchups along the way. But I think they're the ones that I would look for if I had to bet. And if you're listening out there, you shouldn't bet on any games in this tournament because you never know what's going to happen. But certainly, if I had to bet, I would take the Wichita State Shockers to make it through this really tough bracket.
Okay, so then after the conference tournament, it's going to come down to how many teams can the AAC get into the big dance. And, right now, Wichita State's kind of on the bubble. Cincinnati's on the bubble. Houston's pretty much the only lock to this point in time. Tulsa is a regular season conference champion, not even getting a sniff. And I'm wondering your opinion on the national outlook on the conference, because to me, when you talk about the Big Ten possibly getting 10 teams into the tournament, they've been talking about that. The Pac-12 getting 7 potential bids. To me, it's outrageous, and to me, it's like one of those things when there's a lot of competitiveness in the league for those quote unquote power schools. That's a good thing, and for a conference like the American, it's looked at negatively. It's just kind of odd to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's the little bit of the Power 5 bias that we certainly see on the football side creeping into the basketball side, where it doesn't happen as often. But I definitely agree with you, and I would love to ask Oresco his opinion on that, on the parity that's happened especially at the top of this league, where every team has some really great wins, those great quad 1 wins if you look at those top 4 seeds. But there are some mixture of the quad 2, quad 3 losses in there as well, and so I would hope that if this thing kind of shakes out, where, I think that if this thing kind of shakes out, there's a chance where, Houston, Wichita State, and Cincinnati, those 3 teams, if Wichita State and Cincinnati kind of have a really, if they get that matchup with each other and they have a really close game where they both look pretty good, the loser of that game might have a chance there. Certainly, as you said, Houston's kind of the only lock. But as long as all 3 of those teams, or I should say, all 3 of those teams have a chance to advance to the final game there, and some combination of that, I think that there's a chance that we could be a 3-bid league. But you're right. There's some other teams that have some really solid wins on the year, even outside of conference. That should get some more looks, but I think overall, as we talked about on the radio a few weeks ago, Jeff, I think those 3 teams are probably the ones that have the best chance of getting a at-large bid if they're not able to win the conference outright. Now, the other thing that's going to be really interesting is what if a team outside of those 3, wins it all?
That was going to be my next question, actually. Because you have the way this conference has gone, you got a potential bid stealer out there.
Yeah, I would say for certain, you've definitely got some bid stealers in this conference. I think we've already talked about UConn probably having the big potential there. Tulsa, of course, has played great this conference slate, so who knows? They could kind of move through this bracket if they can get past Houston or Memphis and Houston. Who knows what could happen? But I'd probably say of the teams that are playing in the first round, and then you got Memphis, right? I mean, they're a young team, but they're extremely talented and they've got size. I mean, I think 1 through 6 has a chance of winning this bracket, a very good chance of winning this bracket. And who knows what happens below that. But I think 1 through 6 all are probably walking into this thing with a real legitimate shot of winning the bracket and stealing that bid. You've got other conferences like the Mountain West who had already had a bid stolen from, conferences like the American, with Utah State winning that conference. Mm-hmm. So, we're already got the chips stacked against us before these most of these tournaments are done, and so it'll be real interesting to see if we can possibly get 3 teams into the tournament. But I think it's all the stars are going to really have to align in order for that to happen.
Well, one thing we know for sure as we go into this conference tournament, if the regular season is any flavor whatsoever in this conference tournament, it's going to be wild to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And just as a basketball fan of any of these teams or just a college basketball fan in general, this is certainly going to be a conference tournament to keep an eye on, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
All right. That's been Stout, our Knightline Sports Network basketball analyst. Ben, we thank you so much for breaking the tournament down with us.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. I really appreciate you having me on, and you know who I'm cheering for throughout this week, but it should be a great tournament throughout, regardless.
Well, I'm on the same boat with you, so you don't have to worry about that. And of course, you can follow Ben at BigSocial32 on Twitter as well. He'll have some great insights, I'm sure, throughout the conference tournament.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
And just before we head to a break, the last regular season player honors, the player of the week, Christian Vitale of UConn. The senior guard, 27 points average and a pair of wins, helping the Huskies to the 5 seed in the conference tournament. Had 26 points and some big free throws down the stretch, 8 of them to secure a 77-71 win over Houston before scoring 28 in the road win at Tulane. And the freshman of the week, tell me if you haven't heard this before, Precious Achiuwa of Memphis, averaged a double-double with 19.5 points, 15.5 rebounds in a 1-1 week for the Tigers. Had his 18th double-double of the season with 25 and 15 against the Cougs on Sunday, and he is the only freshman in the nation averaging a double-double. And coming up next, when the AAC Report continues, we will wrap up the women's conference tournament.
Raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney is our commitment to you at Chad Barr Law. I'm Chad Barr, and as a UCF alum, I am proud to present Knightline, the morning after show, Central Florida's only call-in show dedicated to our UCF Knights every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And remember, if you or a loved one are injured in an auto accident, call us at 407-599-9036 to schedule your free consultation or visit us at chadbarlaw.com. Our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices Altamont Springs. Go Knights. Charge on.
Night Nation, this is Adam, one half of the dynamic duo that is the Sons of UCF, which is found only on the Knightline Sports Network. Join UCF Mike and I each week as we bring you some of the latest from in and around UCF sports, including such great segments as the Josh Heupel Translator, Top 8 Lists, and Cow of the Week. We'll also bring you some of the most in-depth and unique interviews with some of your favorite former Knights. You don't want to miss a moment, so make sure you subscribe to the Knightline Sports Network wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll take care of the rest. Go Knights. Charge on.
And to no one's surprise, the UConn Huskies have won the Women's Basketball Conference Tournament. They score an 87-53 victory over the Cincinnati Bearcats. The Huskies, in their 7 seasons in the AAC, 139-0. So they went undefeated their entire 7-year run in the American. Cincinnati, who upset the 2-seed UCF in a come-from-behind victory to get to the title game. Did they do enough to get into the tournament? And did UCF do enough to get into the NCAA tournament? Those questions will be answered in a week to find out about that. But one thing we might know for sure is that UCF and Cincinnati would be the early favorites in the 2020-2021 season as far as women's basketball is concerned. Some other news and notes around the American in baseball. The player of the week is Alec Burleson of ECU. Hit .667, 10 for 15 with 7 runs scored, along with a home run and 4 runs driven in, as the Pirates went 4-0 last week, including a sweep over Charlotte. The junior also had an OPS of 1.565, 3 for 3 on Friday night, and he also picked up the win on the mound. And the pitcher of the week is Evan Shawver of Cincinnati. He tossed a gem against Eastern Michigan, giving up only 1 hit and 1 run in 8 2/3 innings of work, while striking out 12 in the Bearcats' 8-1 win on Saturday. Softball, the player of the week is Olivia Sappington of UConn. Had an explosive weekend as their designated player during a 4-1 week for the Huskies at the JMU Invitational in Harrisburg, Virginia. Batted .588 with 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, and a 1.706 OPS, and 4 runs in 5 starts that included 2 wins over James Madison and a run rule shutout of California. And the pitcher of the week is Georgina Korick of USF. And it's the 3rd straight time after getting a 4-0 record and a .59 ERA in 4 appearances during the USF tournament over in Tampa. Over 23 and 2/3 innings of work, yielded a 182 batting average against, and struck out 37 batters against 4 walks. And lacrosse, we have some honors to pass along from that. So the attack player of the week is Monica Borzillo of Cincinnati. Scored 7 goals with 8 assists for 15 points, the most by an AAC player last week in a 2-0 week for the Bearcats. Midfield of the week is Shannon Kavanaugh of Florida. 8 goals with 2 assists in 2 games. Defensive player of the week is Kara Nakrasius of Temple. And led the Temple defense that allowed an average of 9.5 goals in a 2-0 week. And she had 6 draw controls and 2 calls turnovers in a 15-12 win against Columbia. And Bel Mastro Pietro of Temple was the freshman of the week, scored 7 goals, 2 assists, along with 4 ground balls, 3 draw controls, and 2 calls turnovers in the Owls 2-0 week a week ago. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88, and we also remind you, please, not only as you listen, but to like and share not only this program, but all of our Knightline Network sports programming, as we love to bring you great shows week after week. This has been the AAC Report only on the Knightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.